The Conspiracy to Erase History, the Archivist Project. The cold November rain fell in curtains, turning the city's neon lights into watercolor blurs on the asphalt. Inside the phone booth, which smelled of wet metal and stagnant despair, Captain Steve gripped the receiver so tightly his knuckles were white. The voice on the other end was gone, but the message remained, an echo in the silence. He crossed out the last name on his list. Now, he was alone. The only thing his last comrade left behind was the same enigmatic symbol, a perfect circle with a single broken line running through it. It wasn't a signature. It was a mark of erasure. Steve, a 40-year-old man whose eyes held the geography of wars not found on any map, lived in self-imposed exile. His cabin, nestled deep within a forest that held its secrets, was his fortress against a world he no longer recognized. Mornings were filled with the ritual of chopping wood, the rhythmic swing of the axe, a futile attempt to silence the persistent buzzing in his mind, fragments of memory that assaulted him without warning. The smell of damp earth and gunpowder, the cry of an exotic bird that transformed into a man's lament, the sticky dampness of a swamp halfway around the world. These were the scars of clandestine battles, conflicts fought in the shadows to maintain the peace of others, but which stole his own. He fought in a war that officially never happened. His unit, codenamed Spectre, was a ghost, just like him. His routine of silence was shattered by a phone call. It was David's wife, the last name on the list. Her voice, fractured by panic, cut through the fog of his isolation. "He's gone, Steve. Just vanished. The car's in the garage, the wallet on the table. The police don't understand." There was a pause, and then the words that froze Steve's blood. There was something drawn in the dust on the bedside table. A circle with a line. Steve didn't let her finish. He knew. The symbol, the erasure mark, it wasn't a coincidence. It was a pattern. One by one, the specters were being transformed into real ghosts. For years, he had tried to bury the soldier inside him, but Martha's call gave him no choice. He grabbed a worn canvas bag from under the bed. Inside, there was a passport with a name that wasn't his, and wads of cash from various countries. The past wasn't dead. It was hunting him. The decision was instantaneous, forged in the fire of silent promises made on forgotten battlefields. He wouldn't let David, or any of them, simply be erased. The first step back into the shadow world was David's house. The air was heavy with a violated normalcy. On the living room wall, a photograph of a happy family was subtly altered. A thin, almost invisible scratch formed the symbol of a broken circle over David's smiling face, as if a cosmic bureaucrat had erased him from existence. It was there, amidst the vestiges of a stolen life, that Steve found the first clue. A receipt from a high-security data archive, a place where sensitive information went to die. Using his old infiltration skills, Steve entered the repository. The place was an information mausoleum, silent and cold. He found the Spectrum unit files, but they were disintegrating before his eyes. Lines of code crumbled into digital garbage, names were replaced by random strings of characters, and amidst the corruption, a single word repeated itself like a virus. Archivist. As he evaded the security systems, the first major enemy offensive struck him, not with bullets, but with something infinitely more treacherous. A searing headache, followed by a wave of heat and a vivid memory. The day he taught his daughter to ride a bike, her laughter echoing in the sunny park. It was one of his few happy, untouched memories. But for a split second, his daughter's face transformed into that of a child he had never seen. The memory, his anchor, seemed false, an implant. Despair hit him like a physical force. He wasn't just being hunted. His mind was becoming the battlefield. They weren't just erasing his friends from the world, they were erasing the ones from inside his own head. His spark of hope came in the form of Elias, his former intelligence analyst, now a paranoid recluse living off the grid, surrounded by signal jammers and conspiracy theories that suddenly seemed frighteningly plausible. "They're not killing, Steve," Elias whispered, his eyes scanning the shadows of his cabin. "They're harvesting. It's neural extraction technology. They suck memories dry like crude oil, refine them into data, and then erase the source. They don't just want us to forget history. They're rewriting it, removing the inconvenient chapters. The struggle became a relentless chase. Agents of the archivist, men and women with empty eyes and aseptic efficiency, pursued him. Their main weapon was Steve's own history. In dark alleys, he saw apparitions of fallen comrades, whispering of his failures. In moments of rest, memories of failures were amplified, while moments of heroism were replaced by feelings of shame and doubt. They were trying to destabilize him, to make him doubt every memory, every instinct. The turning point came during a chase in a crowded market. Cornered, their technology hit him with full force, attempting to implant a memory of peaceful surrender. But as the false scenario unfolded, he focused on something undeniably real. The rough, jagged texture of a scar on his left hand, a gift from shrapnel in a nameless jungle 15 years ago. The phantom pain, the tactile memory, was his. The artificial world trembled and shattered. He discovered his weapon, the truth, no matter how ugly or painful. Pain was his anchor to reality. Armed with this newfound clarity, Steve stopped running and began hunting. He learned to feel the edges of the implanted memories, to notice the lack of sensory imperfection. He used their misinformation against them, feigning falling into their psychological traps, allowing them to guide him ever closer to the heart of the operation. The trail didn't lead him to a military bunker, but to a white glass and steel building that looked more like a modern art foundation or a corporate wellness center. The archivist's headquarters. There were no armed guards, only silent technicians in white coats who moved with a disturbing calm. At the center of it all, he found the mastermind behind the operation, a woman named Ilara. She greeted him not as an enemy, but as a rare specimen. "Captain," she said, her voice calm and controlled, "you are the last one, the most resilient." She led him to the nexus, the heart of the facility. It was a vast, circular room where beams of light danced, visualizations of stolen memories. "History is a disease," Ilara explained, her face illuminated by the ethereal glow of the data. "It traps humanity in cycles of hatred, revenge, and war. We are the cure. We offer a new beginning, a past without pain, a future without the burden of trauma." The final battle began. Ilara didn't try to kill him. She tried to heal him. She targeted the memory that defined Steve, the one that shattered him every night in his dreams. The last lesson. A mission that went terribly wrong, where he was forced to sacrifice his best friend to save the rest of the unit. It was the source of his pain, his guilt, his identity. Ilara believed that by removing this trauma, she would make him docile, whole, but Steve knew that without this scar, he would be nothing. As the machine focused on his mind, he didn't fight the memory. He plunged into it. He embraced the rain, the smell of blood, his friend's scream, the unbearable weight of that choice. He focused on every agonizing detail, not to forget, but to remember with absolute, brutal clarity. He took the darkest memory from his soul and transformed it into a beacon. He transmitted it. The raw emotion, the unfiltered truth of war, loss, and sacrifice flooded the sterile system of the Nexus. It was poison to Ilara's artificial perfection. Alarms sounded. The beams of light flickered violently and turned red. The screens that displayed rewritten histories and peaceful pasts cracked, now showing the face of the war they had tried to bury. Steve's transformation was complete. He was no longer a man haunted by his past, but a man strengthened by its complete and terrible truth. The archivist's downfall wasn't an explosion, but a silent collapse. Acting on an avalanche of encrypted data sent by Elias, intelligence agencies raided the institute, finding technology they barely understood, and a leadership vacuum. Ilara and her top team had vanished. The forgotten wars didn't return to the history books. Instead, they became whispers in internet conspiracy forums, anomalous footnotes that most ignored. The world didn't change, but Steve did. The isolation was gone, replaced by purpose. He traveled the country, finding the Spectre's families. He couldn't give them medals or official government recognition. He gave them something more precious, the truth. Sitting in living rooms, photo albums open in their laps, he told the stories. He spoke of their bravery, their humor, their sacrifice. He restored their memories, one family at a time. He became their guardian, his own kind of archivist, one who didn't erase but preserved. He was no longer a ghost fleeing from himself. He was a witness. He learned the ultimate lesson, not on the battlefield, but in the silent struggle that followed. That a nation or a person is not defined by the battles it wins, but by the scars it chooses to bear. And that memory, especially painful memory, is not a burden. It is proof that we lived, that we loved, and that we mattered. We're waiting for you for the next amazing adventure. I'll see you there. Thank you. Thanks.